Alrighty then. What's happening? Peace and power, elevation, be to all you beautiful people out there. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in faith. Live in faith. So while some people come in, I just want to go ahead and get started on this video. So the video is going to be about this whole thing regarding to the Roe versus Wade situation. And also I'm going to give my synopsis on P-Valley. Right, but I want to thank everybody that been subscribing to my channel, checking out my channel, watching my YouTube videos, etc. I appreciate that so much. All right, so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get started with this Roe versus Wade. So some months back, I spoke on it when they were in the process of making the decision to overturn it. All right, but now the Roe versus Wade have been overturned by the Supreme Court after 50 years. And basically what that means is that the Supreme Court giving it over to the states. So now the states can make the decision as far as what they're going to do, as far as what resources they can provide, if they want to provide any resources to women who want to go through the procedure and the process of having abortion, etc. So basically the federal is saying, we clean our hands on this, and by us cleaning our hands, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to the state. And we're going to let the state control and dictate and run things however they want to run it accordingly. So basically, that's what the federal government is doing. And on top of that, there's other agendas going on along with that. So a lot of people are getting upset about it, especially women. Of course, they're upset because they feel like that the government is controlling their body, telling them what to do, etc. So now people feel like they are in a fascist state or a fascist government system where basically is like some form of dictatorship. All right, so that's what a lot of people are upset about. Where I stand on my position, I mean, I don't care if they overturn Roe versus Wade. I mean, that's their choice. All right, but my whole thing is, if it turns over to the states, then the states should be able to give the option for women to have an abortion if it comes down to any type of situation such as rape, incest, or serious health issues. So if women have any type of serious health issue, or if they've been raped, or or there was a form of incest, meaning they was one of their family members impregnated them or something like that, then that's where the option of abortion should be on the table. It should not just be completely taken off the table. Okay. Now, it's one thing if there was a limitation on the amount of abortion that women can get, meaning that abortion should not be an unlimited access. Abortion should not be an unlimited access to where it should be like a form of birth control pill, where people just go in there and just go in and get rid of the child and come back out and then go back in. You know, I don't think abortion should be used for that sake, but it should be used in a sense where women can have that option when they have a medical issue, or if there was a serious emergency where they've been raped, and especially by their loved ones, then that's when they should be able to go and go through the procedure. Or if there was a child that was raped, you know what I'm saying, they should be able to go there. Or if there was a woman that is at she's past her childbearing age, right? And she has some type of health issues going on, there should be an option available. All right, but other than that, I don't think abortion, I think there should be some type of regulation on the amount of abortion that women should receive. I'm not really for abortion myself. I mean, because I'm more of a pro-lifer. I believe that a child is entitled to life, but circumstances happen and things is going to take place. And there's going to always be something going wrong with you. So which may interfere or which may cause a woman to not continue her pregnancy. So I get that. All right, so I stand on that. But let me tell you, and I'm going to put people on some game about this, okay? It's also a way to bring about population control. And what I mean is that white supremacy, especially, right? The white population want to remain dominant They want to remain popular. They want to remain in power. So what do they do in order to stay in power? What do they have to do in order to stay in power? Well, what they're going to have to do is they're going to bring some type of regulation and control over the population. So that means to get things like this to be overturned because they don't want their race or their group to decline. But you know, at once upon a time, when Planned Parenthood first came into existence, it was mostly placed in the predominantly black community where there was black people who was impoverished because what they wanted to do was keep black folks or encourage black people to not continue to populate and continue to have children. They want to depopulate the black community in the sense, okay? Because at one point in time, women used to get sterilized. So the alternative to get sterilized is just put Planned Parenthood in the communities. So that way, that would give women more option to just go and get rid of their babies. So they were basically trying to encourage more black women to just, especially those who were poor, to just go and get an abortion because they feel like, oh, you won't get out of poverty, you know, you won't get out of this situation. So it would be just best for you to just get rid of your child and don't worry about it. And but then at the same time, that's very fallacious too because you got people who were born into poverty and were able to get out of it. Okay, so just because a mother have multiple children while she's in poverty doesn't mean that she's not going to ever make it out of poverty. Now, there again, life is based on probability and chances. Everything is not absolute. So there's a chance that you may get out of a situation. And there's a chance that you may not get out of a situation. There's always chances. So because a woman may have multiple kids while she's in poverty, while she's poor, that doesn't mean that she doesn't have a chance to move out the inner city and move into a better community or better environment. You know what I'm saying? So this is very controversial because now people ask the question as far as, well, are they going to stop women from taking contraception, getting access to things like Plan Bs and birth control pills and all these different things? I don't think that that's going to be the case because I still believe that women still have access to get those material. But the thing is, you know, they were already available. I mean, those are already the alternatives. That's how I look at it. Those are the alternatives to lessen your chance of having a baby. Because if you don't use those resources and you end up getting pregnant, then you can't say it's an unwanted pregnancy, right? How's the unwanted pregnancy when you basically knew what you was doing in the first place? That's why it's up to you as the woman to make sure you use contraception, you get the material that you need, the resources that you need before you even engage into any type of sexual activity. All right. So that's why I stand on that. It's the responsibility of the woman to make sure that she get all the resources that she needs first, especially if you out there living a certain type of lifestyle. Let's say you out there prostitute. If you a prostitute, yeah, you definitely want to make sure you get your contraception, you get all the stuff that you need if you're going to be out there prostitute. If you're going to be a porn star, it's the same thing. Make sure you get tested, get all that stuff. That's your responsibility. And then another thing, too, people always want to talk about, oh, the government is in our body, the government is telling us what to do with our body, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the government can't control what you do with your body, per se. The government can't tell you when and where to get pregnant, who to have sex with, who to have a baby with. The only thing the government can do is say, well, we can provide these resources for you, and we're not going to provide that resources for you. That's basically what the government is telling you. And they're doing that for a reason because it's about some form of population control. They want to be able to make sure that they stay in power, make sure that there's certain groups in power. They can care less if the black community was going around aborting kids. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they really want us to do. They don't want us to continue to populate. They want to continue to be a pure race, a dominant race. If you guys check out the book by Neil Irvin, I think the book is called The History of White People. And she does a lecture on this. She goes into details of how the white race came into existence. Because at one point in time, there was no such thing as a white race, right? Everybody wasn't considered to be white. But because they wanted to become a dominant race, the European, they started to include everybody else into the white community. They include the Irish, the Italian people, right? The people from Austria, Hungarian people. They started incorporating them into the white community. But at one point in time, those people weren't even considered to be white. But what they were doing that for is to make themselves dominant, to make themselves powerful, so they don't want to decline. So at the end of the day, it's pretty much about upholding white supremacy. It's more so about gaining power. That's what it's really about. And they try to make sure they minimize the rest of us. They try to make sure that the population of us is stay at 12%, which I think the number is higher than that. But according to statistics, they say that we make up to 12% of the population in the United States. And they want to keep the number that way. They don't want us to keep on procreating. They don't want us to keep increasing the numbers. So if a lot of black people really knew what the whole intention was of Planned Parenthood, I think black people would be able to reconsider those things or reconsider going to the abortion clinic. But we are encouraged as black women, we be encouraged to get rid of our babies, especially if we're in poverty, because we got this perception, or we're being told that if you're in poverty, you're not going to make it out of the ghetto. You're not going to make it out the hood. You're not going to make it. You're going to continue to be poor for the rest of your life. And so these women start to believe that, oh, I ain't going to be able to make it. I can't afford no child. So they get rid of the child instead of looking into other alternatives, as far as giving the child for adoption or giving the child over to residents who may, I mean, not resident, relatives who may want to take care of the babies, or, things of that nature. They don't look to other options. And then we have to face the reality. Most women, when they get abortion, they're not getting it because they've been raped or they got medical condition going on. They do it because of social reason and economic reason. And for mainly social reason, because they don't want the baby by the man they done slept with 2 months ago, or they done had a bad relationship with this guy, so they want to get rid of the child because they don't want no part of the child and they don't want no part of him. All right, so hopefully, I hope that they bring about limitation on abortion as far as like bringing some form of access, making it optional for women who may have some serious health condition and who's been sexually violated and things like that. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that becomes. So I hope that becomes accessible. I hope that becomes accessible to women. And I hope they don't just take that off the table. But yeah, a lot of people upset. But I look at it like this. Why put it in effect in the first place? 50 years. 50 years of Roe versus Wade. The damage is done. The damage is done already. So why go ahead and just take it off the table when you should have did that a long time ago? It should, the way I see it, it should never been put into effect. It should have never been put into law. It should have been left the way it was. So now basically you're going back and giving it over to the states and say, okay, the states can take control of this because we don't want no part of this. And it's kind of like, well, now it's too late because the women done got used to it. They done got so used to having that leverage to go out and do all this. Now they feel like, oh, you basically controlling the person's body, and you basically telling them what to do with their bodies, etc. That's how these women feel. But I feel like the federal government messed up when they put that law into effect. That's how I feel about it. They messed up when they put that Roe versus Wade into effect. They should just go ahead and just left it at the state and not have anything to do with that, in my opinion. That's how I feel. In my honest opinion, that's just where I stand on it. Everybody else can see things differently. And also this whole argument that the government is controlling your body. No, the government don't control my body. And I'm gonna say it for the record. The government cannot tell me who to sleep with, who to have a baby with, none of that shit. The government can't do that. And then people talk about this as a fascist government. Well, it's been that. I mean, the United States, it was already that the United States was built on that concept in the beginning. What it did was it disguised that. This government system disguised the fascist mentality they had by covering it up with democracy. That's all they did. They disguised that shit. But at the end of the fucking day, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, we was already in the fascist government. We was already in that. We was already head down that route. We was in it in the beginning. They just disguised it. That's all it is. It was just a disguise. Hold on. Someone put, have you done your DNA test? If I had to guess, you are Yoruba, most likely from the Dahomey, in my opinion. I have done my DNA test. There's a possibility that I might have Yoruba in me. I might have Igbo, but I've been told that I look like a Fulani person. So I was told that I look more like a Fulani individual. And that's a possibility that I might have Fulani in me too. So I might have Fulani, Yoruba, or maybe Igbo. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? I haven't really got into detail as far as like what tribe that I would be placed in, but according to my DNA test, yes, uh, there is some Nigerian, some Ghanaian, and Senegambia ancestry, etc. All right, so yeah, that's where I stand on that. It was bound to happen. I mean, it was gonna happen eventually. The government was just going, the federal government was going to clean its hands over and say, all right, we're going to hand it over to the states and let the states do whatever they want to do with it. I mean, people going to get upset about it. So now people asking other questions about, well, what about the contraception? What about the same-sex marriage? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, what about civil rights? Well, let me tell you something about the civil rights. The civil rights has been infiltrated. The civil rights has been infiltrated for a long time. Why do I say that civil rights has been infiltrated? Because they started including everybody else into the bill. The bill was only designated for African descended people. The affirmative action was designated for African descended people, but everybody else was included. Everybody else got included. Everybody else was added on to it. Everybody was added on to the equation. Yeah, everybody else was added on to the equation. So with that being said, the Civil Rights Act bill has already been infiltrated. It already been infiltrated for a long time. And that's just where I see on it. So now let's go to the next thing. Let's talk about P Valley. So the show that's popular right now on Stars, you can find it on Stars L, which is called P Valley. Okay, so I'm gonna give my synopsis. Let's go through the character. So let's go into the setting of the show. The show is basically about a strip club in a fictitious town called Chapalisa, Mississippi, which was filmed in Atlanta, Georgia, by the way. It wasn't actually filmed in Mississippi, but that was the setting. In Chapalisa, Mississippi, a small town, they got a strip club called the Pink Club, right? So the setting is centered around majority African Americans growing up in the inner city community, coming from the inner city environment, black women in particular. They go to the strip club just so they can pretty much make money and take care of their priorities, take care of their families and themselves. All right. So I'm gonna break down each character. So the character Autumn, she was a woman that was come from, I think she came from Texas or something, and there was a flood in the area, so she went over to Mississippi. No, was it Texas or Louisiana? One of those states. So there was a flood going on in one of those areas, and she went over to Mississippi to find work, and she found work at a strip club. So she was going through an abusive relationship, right? Well, with a guy that was a pimp, and then she lost her child in the flood. So she was going through a traumatic experience, and she always had flashbacks. Then you have Mercedes. Mercedes is a young lady, right, who come from a church background. Her mother, who was a hypocrite, and also a person that was finessing her. She finessed her mom. Her mother was finessing her out her money just so she could donate money to the church. And then when the church did not want her to be there because they don't allow women to preach, she wanted to open up her own church, so she would take her daughter's money to try to open up her church. But then here's a story about Mercedes. She has a child that she did not have custody of. So the custody was given over to the widow of the man that she had a relationship with. And that woman was taking care of the little girl, raising her and whatnot. Okay. So she wants to open up her dance studio. And of course, because her mother took her money, she could not open up the studio like she wanted to. All right. And then going to the next story, you got Gidget. Gidget is a white girl that comes from a trailer park. Her mama was a crackhead or whatnot. Not too much to said about her life. Then you got LaShawn, you got Keyshawn, who's also known as Miss Mississippi, who was in abusive relationship with a white guy, who she got kids by. He constantly abusing her, but she had a dream of becoming a video vixen. So she was getting all the likes on the YouTubes, the Facebooks, and the Instagram, so she could become a video vixen. And that's what she did. But things turned out to be the worst of when the guy was trying to save her life. However, she pulled a gun on this man, and from there that pretty much torn a friendship. And then we're gonna talk about another character, which is Uncle Clifford, and then you got Little Murder. So Uncle Clifford, no, well, two other characters, yeah, three other characters. Uncle Clifford is the owner of Pink, but he's also a homosexual, and he cross dresses a lot. So he cross dresses, okay. And by Uncle Clifford being the one to cross dress and being a homosexual, he runs the Pink Club, but it was sent down to him from a family descent. So it was a family owned business at first. So he happened to be the one to take over and turn it into a strip club. It was a juke joint. His grandmother, who was blind, her name is Ernestine, right? So she passed it down to him, let him run the club because she was not able to do so. Then you got Little Murder, LaMarcus. LaMarcus uh, was a struggling rapper that he is, a hood nigga, a thug, but he happened to be on the DL because he was seen having a relationship with Uncle Clifford. And he was using Uncle Clifford pretty much to get his music out. And then on top of that, yeah, so he was pretty much trying to get into the music business. So he started off as a struggling rapper coming up out the streets just so he can get into the industry. And he saw his opportunity to have a relationship with Uncle Clifford so he can be able to get his music out. Mm. Then you got Diamond. Diamond is the one of the club bouncers, right? So a club bouncer is a security guard. So he's a security guard, but he also practices hoodoo. Hoodoo is an African American form of African spirituality and African holistic healing incorporated into the American way of life. So it's syncretized. So yeah, he was practicing hoodoo. He was into that. He was an army veteran, etc. And he got a job as a club bouncer. And then the other security guard, can't remember the other guy's name. I think his name is L. Yeah, L is a security guard, old school. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just run down on the characters, right? Now, what we can learn about P Valley. P Valley is pretty much is a depiction of everyday life of everyday individual in our community. So we especially it's about the street politics and business politics. And not only is the business politics behind it, but you also gotta look at the lifestyles. That's very common. It's a very common thing. So anybody that's into that life, into the club scene and all that, they can relate to that. So what you see here, especially when you look at these black women, the ones that touched me the most was Autumn and Mercedes. They both have a lot in common. They eventually end up having a close friendship because they both understand each other's struggle. They both understand each other's struggle. They both been through similar things. So, but the one that really touched me the most was Mercedes because the fact that her mother had finessed her out her money. Her mother didn't care about her well-being. And the fact that she had a child, but she could not have custody of her until she had a stable job. And that really put her in a lot of messed up predicament. So she did whatever she could just to get her child in her life. And that was the only way she would be able to have a relationship with her. So, you know, when you see a lot of these sisters out here, you never know why they get into these things and do the things they do as far as becoming strippers or prostitution and whatnot. We don't really know what's going on. Many of them get into it because they see an opportunity to get themselves promoted into the music industry. Some of them do it for a survival reason. And some of them are forced to do it. You know what I'm saying? Some of them are forced to do it because they have pimps that make them go out there and strip their asses off to make extra money. So this is a very common thing that we see happen a lot in our community, and many black women can relate to this show, which is why there's so much viewings, and most of the audience are black women and some black men, but for the most part, it's gonna gravitate towards black women because a lot of them can relate to that. They can relate to each and every last one of those characters. And I felt bad for Keyshawn a little bit because of the fact that she had to bring her baby to the strip club because she couldn't leave him with her white baby daddy. But after seeing the episode where she pulled the gun on Diamond, that pretty much kind of just made me not feel bad for her anymore. Because it's like, okay, your baby daddy beating the hell out your ass, but you keep running back to him. So you gonna put a gun on the man that tried to save your life. So I had watched a season of that show. I watched the first season. Now the second season is cool because when we learned that Autumn eventually got her pull her weight up, and how she pulled her weight up was she was scamming. She was getting money. She was using fake IDs to get abstract money, right? And then she was using fake debit cards and all of that. So she was eventually able to pull her weight up, and she was able to buy the club, which it was going to go into foreclosure, and it was going to be turned over to some investors who wanted to put casinos there. So she was able to do that. And that's pretty much all I got to say. So to, to my opinion, in my surprise, I didn't think that the show, at first I thought the show wasn't even worth watching, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was worth watching. But when I started watching it, I said, well, it's not so bad. It was pretty entertaining. It's pretty funny. But at the same time, the whole purpose of me watching it was to do the knowledge, to be able to get better understanding, be able to understand each character and their life and what they go through in their personal situation. Now, some things I could not get past. And one of the things I could not get past, and I'm going to be straight up, was Little Murder and Uncle Clifford's relationship. Because I'm thinking to myself, excuse my language, I'm thinking to myself, for little murder, there is a bunch of women out there, so many pussies out there, so many pussy out there that you can get. Why the fuck did you have to gravitate to Uncle Clifford? I mean, there's a bunch of pussy out there. There's a bunch of women out there, actual women with, beautiful bodies and everything. Why did you gravitate towards Uncle Clifford? For, in my opinion, I would have rather for Lil Murder to be in a relationship with Keyshawn than to be in a relationship with Uncle Clifford. That's just me. That's just where I stand on it. But I guess the creator of the show wants to show that diversity and the lifestyle. All right. So I think the show was very creative. I think that the creator did the person that created the show did a good job of putting all of this together and being able to tell the story in a more accurate manner. I think it was a great show. And you know what I'm saying? A good show to watch, a good show to sit back and just do knowledge on. So for me, I was able to sit back and do the knowledge and be able to understand the psychology behind the whole thing. It was more of that for me than it was for entertainment. Of course, I was laughing at some of the scenes that I witnessed, especially with Uncle Clifford, because Uncle Clifford is a funny character. That man funny as hell. I ain't even gonna care. He's funny as shit. He's full of surprises. Let's put it like that. He's full of surprises. He'll pull up anytime. He'll pull up anytime and he'll pull up wearing different outfits. He got different personality. He got a personality that goes along with it. So Uncle Clifford is funny as shit. I ain't even gonna lie. Some of the characters on there are funny, but for the most part, the show was about being able to do the psychology and do the knowledge. And so when you be able to do the knowledge on the show, you'll be able to understand and reflect that into a personal situation or a real life situation. And so that's what a lot of these women are facing. It goes to show you when you look at each and every last one of these black females on the show, right? The characters, that goes to show you that it's pretty rough as a black person and as a black woman to get by, to even just make ends meet, to take care of yourself or to just take care of your family. So me and them didn't want to get a 9 to 5 job because most 9 to 5 jobs don't pay enough money. So they figure when they become strippers, they get that fast money and they can do what they have to do, without any repercussion. So and that's for a lot of sisters out there. They start from the beginning level to work their way up to the top. So if they enter into that street life or into the underground marketing, they're going to get into the stripping life first. Most of them turn to stripping or to prostitution before they start selling drugs. And then the things they were showing on in the scene as far as like drug activity going on and shootouts taking place, etc. That's something that many who was once in the strip club, that's what they witnessed. That's what they seen. They seen motherfuckers coming there fighting. They seen people coming up in there doing all kind of little business deals, drug transaction, etc. They seen stuff like that. So it's a depiction of what it's like to live in the inner city and have to struggle and try to figure out a way how to get up out of this capitalistic system. So this goes to show you how the game of capitalism is and how it is operated and how it brings about hindrance on a certain group of people and those in a certain class. All right, let me see. So, am I for abortion? To answer that question, no, I'm not for abortion unless there is a legitimate reason. Such as if, again, I'm gonna repeat myself, I'm not for abortion unless there's a reason, such as if somebody got raped, if there's a medical issue, or if there's incest. That's it. That's the only time I'm for abortion. But other than that, I'm really not for abortion. I don't advocate for abortion. You know what I mean? But I think that abortion should be on the table for medical purposes. I don't think it should be on the table for a form of birth control where people just can get pregnant and just go about terminate a pregnancy anytime at any given time, because I think there's other alternative to that, and to prevent one from getting pregnant. And even if you take contraception, there's still a possibility, a chance that you may end up pregnant. So the smartest thing to do is either be celibate. That's what it means to be celibate until you know that you want it, until you're ready to get engaged and start a family. Just remain celibate. But there are people that don't want to do that. They don't want to be celibate. So if you don't want to be celibate, then be wise enough to get your contraception and get tested if you're going to be sexually active. And that's just where I stand. hmm That's where I stand on that. So I hope that answers your question. All right. So, anyways, that's all I have for today, for tonight, and that's all I want to give my thoughts on this whole thing about the overturn by the federal government. So pretty much, I'm gonna say it again, they unclean their hands. So the government cleaned their hands and they gave it over to the states and say, here, y'all run this shit. That's basically what they did. And I already gave my thoughts on P Valley. Like I said, P Valley is a good show. Overall, you understand the psychology. When you do the knowledge, you'll get more understanding of each individual and every character on that show. All right, so until next time, y'all take it easy on yourselves. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, like my channel, share my channel, all that great stuff. And with that being the case, may peace and power elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off saying deuces. And y'all have a wonderful evening or whatever your time zone may be. All right. Thanks.